What's going on, gamers? So things get pretty interesting here. Let's go to the tweet. There's another original tweet too. So Super Metal Dave says here, Street Fighter 6 Treehouse stream, which we looked at. It looks clean and smooth on the Switch too. Very sharp. This is the first version of Street Fighter 6 to use DLSS because the rest of the consoles are AMD, obviously. Even the PC version has no upscaling option. This, by the way, looks far better on Switch 2 than on Steam Deck. Yeah, it blows the Steam Deck out of the water. One thing that I will say is that there's some surprises that we got here. So a lot of people want to know how powerful the Switch 2 is. Well, I'll say the best thing we can do without them giving us raw stats, which we know there's a custom NVIDIA CPU, CPU and RAM aspect that they got running on the Switch 2. And I've been telling people that this console is going to be somewhere around this Series S. And do not be surprised that with NVIDIA's DLSS system, which is the superior AI technology system, that you'll start to see some games maybe look better on the Switch 2 than on the Series S docked. And some people will probably say, no way, I can't believe that, right? Well, so in this video, we're going to do comparisons between the Series S and the Nintendo Switch 2. And then I got another video to do a comparison between the Nintendo Switch 2 and PS5. And then we're going to see how close they can get to each other. Just to show people how good this stuff is. This is what we want to start doing now, right? Because I did the same thing when the PS5 Pro was a couple months away, right? I did a lot of comparisons. Now we're going to be doing it for the Switch. And it's just fun to do this in general. So you guys remember who's been with me for a while before I did the PS4 versus Xbox stuff. Well, I was doing, PS5 Pro versus PC, PS5 Pro versus Xbox, PS5 Pro, versus PS5, just because it's just nice to do. So now I have one here for Street Fighter 6. Y'all, are we ready for this? Because this is going to get interesting. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. Let's get ready. And then we're going to go to another article and show you what NVIDIA actually said about the Nintendo Switch 2 and how much more powerful it is compared to part 1.
Nintendo
is cooking.
Yeah, they just need to drop the price of Mario Kart. Other than that, yeah. And I cleared that up for people, guys. So for example, Kirby and Kirby Star Allies. I mean, not Kirby Star Allies, but Kirby with the Star expansion, which is a 19.99 expansion or $10 expansion they're including with the upgrade. They forced that in a physical bundle, but you could go on the Switch One shop right now, and if the game was on sale for $45 or $40, you could buy the game right now. When the Switch 2 comes out, if you have the online, which most people do, you get the upgrade for free. That's just optional. You know what I mean? Because it's like, here's a Switch 2 expansion, here's Switch 2 updates. So people were thinking that those games were like $80, and it's like, no. Same thing with like Breath of the Wild. It's been on sale multiple times. People just weren't there. You can go get the game for $39. And if you got Switch Online, the upgrade is free. It literally works like that. The only game that ever hit 80 was Mario Kart. And that other stuff was inflated prices coming from from Europe that they're trying to translate over here. So there's no $90 games. Everything is 70. And that's all physical they were looking at. So they might have been charging more. We have to see because there's still a delay going on too. But to clarify that for people, yeah, you could just go right on the eShop and get those games without being forced to do the expansion and the DLC upgrade. And it's 49, 59, same crap. But let's get into this just to clarify that for people. So you don't get misinformation because I hate misinformation.
with the Switch 2. Street Fighter 6 looks amazing on Nintendo's new console. A lot of people might be complaining about the price, and personally I have my own thoughts on that, and the pricing of the console does not bother me too much, but that's gonna be for another video.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't have a problem with the console. I just don't think they should have did 79. And a lot of people have talked about that. I'm like, all right, so we don't have to go in 1,000 circles about it. We know that, you know what I mean? But other than that, there's really not much of a problem with Nintendo. It's a problem of affordability. You know what I mean? Them choosing to be greedy. But other than that, their reveal is good. I like everything I've seen. So that won't change my mind about getting their console. It's more like, what are you going to do now about thinking that you're going to set the new benchmark for 80, which I don't like?
In today's video, we're focusing
That's
on
simple.
some new footage of Street Fighter 6 running on the Nintendo Switch 2. But before we get to that, the like button is feeling kinda lonely, so do me a solid and hit that real quick. Earlier today, Nintendo held another Treehouse event where they showcased Street Fighter 6 running on the Nintendo Switch 2. So let's take a look at that and how it compares to the Xbox Series S. So right off the bat, we're looking at SF6 running on the Switch 2 in the main menu, and I guess you can say goodbye to loading times because I see pretty much zero difference in how long it takes to load menus between the Switch 2 and the Series S.
So that's why they have those microcards too. They have pretty much an SSD in the Switch, but in a different way. You can see the loading times. And this is great, like just looking at what Nintendo's doing compared to other consoles. Like you see that, okay, your loading is there now. Now you have that, the SSD speed.
The Switch 2 is loading everything so quickly. Contrast that with how long menus took to load in Mortal Kombat 1 on the Switch 1. This is a night and day.
Do we already see the clear difference in color texture right here? You can already see that it looks better. I could see it instantly.
Difference, dude. So let's get into some matches, and in the character select menu, I tried my best on the Xbox to align everything the way it was in the Treehouse footage. So we see here that when it comes to the graphics, the Nintendo Switch 2 version is actually a step above the Xbox. However, you might not see it here since I matched them frame for frame, but the Switch 2
You could see it already.
loads like half a second slower, so I would say that's pretty negligible. When it comes to the gameplay, it looks
Yeah, it looks better.
very smooth. Of course, we're not playing it ourselves yet. We're gonna have to wait to see how it really is when it's in our hands, but from the footage that we're seeing, it looks very smooth. And cutting it to the end of the match with a reused level 3 super, here we can see a more complete version of it running on the Switch. And just like in the previous footage, the Switch 2 version is clearly more detailed in almost every way than the Xbox.
You know how you had to look for like sometimes a bigger difference between the PS5 to PS5 Pro, and you had to zoom in and do all that? You don't even need to do that for the Switch 2 version. Right here, it clearly looks better than the Series S version. So all you people that were worried, what do you have to say about that now? They're going to be able to play every game that the Series S can play. Right? We're just looking at this right now. This has nothing to do with price. No, this is just the way things actually work. So let's open our eyes here a little bit because this is very interesting and it's about to get very interesting. Wait till you see the PS5 version versus the Switch 2, which is clearly more powerful than the Series S. That's going to be a video I got coming later for y'all. So yeah, it gets pretty interesting.
Xbox Series S, which I'm still blown away by. The muscle definition, the striations, and the vascularity in reused arms are easy to see on the Switch, but they're pretty much non-existent on the Series S. Now let's take a look at Zangief and Blanca, and we see again pretty much the same thing.
All you have to do is pause it right here. Look at Zangief on the right and look at him on the left.
With Zangief,
the Switch 2 has more texture, more richness and color. All of that. And guys, I'm telling you, do not overlook NVIDIA's AI system. Nintendo, like this is the crazy part because I'm about to show y'all something. Here it is right here. Nintendo Switch 2, NVIDIA says it has 10 times the graphics power of the original Switch. They weren't lying. We can see this here. There are plenty of aspects of the Nintendo Switch 2 that NVIDIA is happy to tell you about. However, one place the company has been relatively quiet is the actual internal specs. Yeah, Nintendo likes to play that little mystery game. We've learned that it will include a custom processor made by NVIDIA, but it doesn't tell us much about the powerful. Thankfully, Nintendo has offered some info about the chip. NVIDIA has offered some info about the chip to help gauge how much more powerful. NVIDIA said the hybrid game console will have 10 times the graphics performance of the Switch 1. That's a lot. That means it's more powerful than the Series S because the Switch was like 800 teraflops, right? Or like 750. That means that with the AI systems, it can get up to like 7,000 to 8,000. If what they're saying is true, the Series X S is only 4,000. The One X had more GPU power than that. And it has 12 gigabytes of RAM. We saw that. The Series S only has 10. So technically, it's a handheld that's more powerful than the Series S. That's mighty impressive. Right? Something else that's very interesting. And remember, the PS5 Pro GPU doesn't even have this. This is why NVIDIA technology is superior. The technology has frame gem capabilities in the desktop and laptop chips, right? But NVIDIA didn't say whether the Switch 2 could support that or exactly which version of DLSS is included. But let me tell you what they do have. They have ray tracing and tensor cores. That's crazy that the Switch is able to have tensor cores, but the PlayStation doesn't even have matrix cores for AMD for PS5 Pro. This is such a key feature in AI upscaling. It allows your performance to jump up even more. That's why you see Cyberpunk running at 40 frames per second. I saw somebody trying to complain about that. I was like, are you out of your mind? It runs 30 frames per second on the Series S. So, like, once again, we see that the Switch 2 is outperforming the Series S again.
Much like Ryu, his body is a lot more defined on the Switch 2. I didn't realign the intros here so you can see how much longer the Switch 2 takes to load, but like I said, it's not by much, like half a second, and again,
which is very impressive.
Visually, the Switch 2 looks to be taking the lead again. If you look at the scars on Zangief's arms, they look like actual scars on the Switch 2 instead of whatever that's supposed to be on the Series S. All in all, I really like what I'm seeing. The Nintendo Switch 2 is shaping up to be exactly what I was hoping it would be, not just what I was expecting it to be. It already exceeded my expectations, and I can't wait to see what this game and Cyberpunk and all the other games are going to look like on the Nintendo Switch 2. So what about you? What do you guys think about what we've seen of the Nintendo Switch 2 so far? And are you going to be getting Street Fighter 6? Again, I should remind you that SF6 is going to have crossplay on the Switch even on day one. If you're on the Switch version of SF6, even on day one, you're going to have thousands of people to play with every single day.
Yeah, when it comes to something like that, you're going to have fun even playing that game in handheld mode or on dock. Like that, that's a game where it's like, okay, one-on-one on the screen. It's not massive open world, but you still can put all that detail there. It's a next-gen game. And guess what? You see, guys, we're getting answers here because it tells us what it's capable of and what we know we're going to be able to do here. It's like, wait, hold on. This is more powerful than the Series S. So I can get a console that I know is more powerful than the Series S. I have all these exclusives. I have a whole entire retro community. And it's justifiable. Like, there's no way I wouldn't get the Switch 2, you know what I mean, in those circumstances. The problem that I would see people having is saying that, oh man, but since I'm only on consoles, I would rather have Game Pass because it's more affordable for me. I think the Nintendo console is very expensive. Not necessarily getting the hardware, but just more about they're asking full price for all these games. I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what I mean? I can understand that. But if it's not a problem and you're a gamer that just wants to even save up and say, man, I got to get some of those games, not Street Fighter 6, you know what I mean? But this just gives you an idea of what type of technology you have available at your hands now. And you're going to be like, okay, yeah, I got to get that because I want to play Pokemon. You know, I want to play all these other games. And now I see that for the future down the line, they're going to have tons of games every year nonstop. You know what I mean? We're talking about the best devs in the industry. And they don't focus on hyper detailed, you know, over budgeted games because these people can't balance their budgets. And that's their problem. But you don't have to worry about that because you're going to be getting all sorts of great in-house games and good third-party games too. So yeah, man, let me know what you guys think about this. It gets very interesting. Like I said, now it's time to do the Switch 2 comparisons. When I was doing the PS5, Xbox, and PS5 Pro comparisons, then I was doing the video comparisons. We're doing it all here. You know what I mean? You'll see it all happening on this channel. And yeah, you're gonna be seeing me embrace some really good positive news in the Nintendo Spectrum. And if they mess up, we'll get on that too, like we already did. Like I said, the only thing to get on them with is just $80 for Mario Kart 8. Other than that, yeah, it's a $10 issue that we want to avoid others trying. Even though if they do try, they're still gonna fail because ain't nobody gonna buy a game that ain't worth $80. You know what I mean? So that's pretty obvious. But outside of that, there's way more positive to embrace about this console than just getting stuck on that and thinking that that's all there is. You know what I mean? Because I was like, what are you people, children? There's so many other things to look at. You know what I mean? And like I said, I am way more excited for it uh, than anything else. You know what I mean? That other stuff, yeah, that's annoying, but we're just gonna have to attack it and see what we can do. If not, what else are we gonna do about it? And I really hope that the community can get that remedy, and that they come out and adjust prices. They're gonna give us all full details. We need to get the full details before we fully react. Now, that's the thing. Everybody's jumping the gun, but it's like let's wait and see what happens now, because now we got a delay. But like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. All right, y'all. This is crazy. Look out for some PlayStation 5 Switch 2 comparisons because that's going to get interesting too with Series X. All right, y'all. Later, so we can see how powerful this thing is. It's doing work for y'all over here, and I'm enjoying it. Gamers, stay being cool. Ponies, sit down.